by the quest, England's finest.
Morning, lovelies. So I still don't really feel up to much other than making videos. So you're getting more videos.
You lucky people.
So I want to talk about the flip side to this echo chamber phenomenon that we're all well familiar with by this point. Now, echo chambers, for all that they are horrible and damaging, are self-inflicted issues. They're things that people do to themselves, yeah? So, like smoking or drinking or whatever else, up to a point, people are responsible for what happens to them, you know, and we shouldn't interfere too much in that. We can object, we can point out the problems with it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to that person's choice. But the problem is that in placing themselves into echo chambers, people aren't only affecting themselves, they're affecting other people around them. You know, if I go out of my way to encounter opposed or oppositional points of view, if I make the time and effort to reach out to people to try and understand where they're coming from, and I just run into a wall of blocks or whatever, you know, they haven't just closed themselves off from other points of view, they have imprisoned me and made it much harder for me to encounter other points of view. I have been placed, therefore, into an echo prison, I guess. And you know what? I don't consent to that. I don't consent to being trapped amongst people who tend to agree with me, or amongst people who have a thick enough skin or enough motivation to want to reach out and argue to people, because that also tends to be one-sided. If we look at what's happened with Mouthy Buddha and others, you know, he's recognized this shift in his thinking, and it's come from his investigations into what this one side believes and massive exposure to a single point of view. And I don't doubt that someone like Mouthy Buddha, who is pretty open-minded like me, has run into the same problem that I do, that the far right, the alt-right, the libertarian people, not to conflate all those together, this is just the kinds of people that are willing to talk. They're willing to talk and to evangelize and to state their case and make their points. Whereas the social justice types, the Black Lives Matter types, the militant feminist types and so on, when it comes to them, it's educate yourself, shitlord, and fuck off, and, you know, Google it, or whatever else. They don't want to take the time to make their arguments, to defend their positions, and often it seems like they can't. You know, I hold many of the same positions, but I feel that I can put up a better fight, even if it was just sophistry, for the things that they believe, than they seem to be willing to do. That seems weird. It seems like a self-defeating way of going about things from their side. You know, they are not only cutting themselves off from oppositional points of view that allow them to strengthen their arguments or consider or modify their arguments or even their positions, but they're imprisoning people like me, and making sure that people like me, like Mouthy, like others, are only exposed to these highly motivated but often extreme points of view. And it takes a huge amount of presence of mind when you're only ever exposed to one point of view to stand up to that and to retain and maintain a strong sense of self. You know, one should be open-minded, but not so open-minded one's brain falls out. You know, I think I've managed. I've seen an extremely modest shift in my position towards the centre from the extreme left, extreme libertarian position. But to me, I think that's largely been because I am so utterly disgusted with the behaviour of other people who call themselves left wing, and I see their extremity and the bad faith in which they act, and so I don't trust them with the kind of things that I would otherwise have previously argued for. And I think a lot of them have lost sight of the goals of left-wing philosophy and meaning as they've gotten caught up in all this identity politics. But that's a side thing. The real point that I want to hammer home here is that I do not consent to being placed in an echo prison. You know, if you want to cut yourself off, that's fine, but you need to consider what effect that is having on other people, what you're doing to them. And I think it's self-defeating, because if you cut people off from being able to access your arguments, your points, your ideas, you're just ceding ground to your opposition, who might be more willing to talk and to argue and to discuss. So it's not only an act of self-harm, it's an act of harm to others, and it's self-defeating if you have any socio-political goal whatsoever. You need to be open-minded, you need to be open to discussion, you need to be open to disagreement. I've lost count of the number of times that I've gone to retweet something that I agree with, or comment on something that I agree with, only to find that I can't because I'm blocked by this person who I've never met or interacted with before, who is apparently using one of these block bots, upon which I've been placed as a naughty boy, either for my involvement in Gamergate, or God knows what other reason. And it's immensely frustrating. It makes me less likely to pay attention to those people in the future. Of course, nobody is going to see this because everyone's locked in their echo chambers or prisons. People that need to see it never will. Zang. It's been called misogynistic, racist, a hate group, reactionary. It's been blamed for Trump, for keeping women out of games and technology. None of this is true. If you want the real story, then you need to buy Inside Gamergate.